Toronto Maple Leafs have made a couple of sneaky signings, finalizing some contracts that could pay big dividends going forward. So I'm going to break that down in this episode of Leafs Digest, as well as Sheldon Keefe. The playoffs are fast approaching, and he has some major decisions to make regarding the lines ahead of the playoff series, which is either going to be against the Florida Panthers or the Boston Bruins. So stay tuned for all that and much more coming up next. But before we do, quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. About 80% of you who are watching aren't subscribed. So if you aren't already, make sure to hit that button. It means the world to us as the playoffs are approaching, Darius, and we're on the road to 7,500 subscribers. So thank you guys for that, and let's get right into the first topic, and we'll start with the signings today. And they made some sneaky signings, and two of them technically, and we'll start with a couple of them here. And this is good. Obviously, it's a weird time to be talking about signings, but let's get it out of the way before we obviously discuss the playoff matchups, which is coming up. But you can see here, Toronto Maple Leafs, we've signed defenseman Nicholas Matten to a one-year, two-way contract beginning in 2024-2025. You can see from Dangle, he said it's a bit of a shock. He was one of those guys negatively labeled in one of those picks. He's huge. He's a defender, big body, unreal season in Germany. It's a good look that the Leafs got him signed. And Darius, this is good. They finalizing these guys is obviously very important. What are your thoughts on this? You can see his stats here. He had a lot of penalty minutes, but he had 46 points in 52 games for the Strobling Tigers. And big defenseman, only 26 years old, and then obviously was drafted way back in 2016.
Yeah, drafted way back in 2016 by your Toronto Maple Leafs, which I thought was really interesting that they'd bring him back. And I was shocked that they even ever let him go. It just didn't seem like he was developing like they would have liked. And he took a different route right out of the OHL as well. He went to school, and then he, got some time with the Laval Rocket after the Leafs, just let him go off the roster and whatnot. But yeah, big defenseman, 6'5", right shot defenseman again. And he's putting together a pretty good career so far. Obviously, he's older now. He's 26, but it looks like he's starting to figure it out. And he had a really good year, like you just mentioned, in Germany. I mean, 52 games played, and he had 46 points. And this was a guy that wasn't necessarily known for putting up points. And another thing that's pretty interesting about this signing, and it was interesting when they drafted him as well, is he's played with Mitch Marner before with the London Knights, and I think he was on the squad that won the OHL championship in London. I'm not sure he played too much that playoffs because he was a rookie, but again, Mitch Marner and him played together. That's all great. And then he did win an OHL championship in Hamilton later in his OHL career. So he has some championship pedigree, yes, at a lesser degree in the OHL, the junior leagues, but it seems like he's starting to figure it out in the pro hockey sense as a defenseman. So nice little sneaky signing to bring this guy back, and maybe he can be a difference maker. I'm not expecting him to start on the Leafs next year, but maybe, you put him on the Marlies. Maybe he even does get time with the Leafs. I have no idea what the blue line is going to look like next year. It's going to be really interesting, but maybe you stick him with the Marlies, and as time goes on and he continues to work again in the North American game, you might see him on the Leafs roster soon.
Yeah, and obviously these signings, who knows how important they'll be, but I kind of think back to the, obviously not apples and oranges here, but the Simon Benoit signing. When he signed, we were all thinking maybe he wouldn't actually make a big impact on the Leafs going forward, and then he went out and did what he did. Now he's a key part of a Maple Leafs team that is obviously headed to the playoffs again. And they also made another signing, Darius, which is Cade Weber. We're just going to pop up his stats here. They signed him to a contract as well. He's a guy we've discussed before. He's at 6 points, and he's another defenseman. So they signed two defensemen over the past couple days. Do you have any thoughts on Cade Weber being signed? He's obviously been playing with Boston University for a while now, since 2020, and a decent guy. They signed him to a contract as well, which is good for the Leafs. Again, they're locking these guys down, and I could see Cade Weber. He's a younger guy now. Was obviously drafted by the Canes in 2019 in the 99th overall pick, but 23 years old, defenseman, shoots left. He's going to be I think he can make an impact going forward.
Yeah, definitely younger, and he's been in college, right? So he hasn't had a chance to come up and, for the NHL to see what he has. So he'll get a chance to do that with the Leafs and the organization now that he's signed. Came a lot sooner than I thought. I thought it would happen maybe around August or something around that deadline that they would have to get it done, because to me, this is kind of in the back of your head if you're tree living. Like, how is the playoffs going to go? That's probably forefront, but great little signing there. 6'7", again, we talked about it. He could be a difference maker in the NHL in a few seasons time, maybe 2 seasons from now, or as soon as next year. Like we said, again, who knows? You'll probably see some time in the NHL one way or another near the end of next season. So that'll be fun to watch too. He's probably going to get time on the Marlies. So another guy to keep an eye on. I'm not too surprised that it got done. I'm just surprised that it got done this soon. But again, there was talks. It sounded like there was a lot of interest on Cade Weber's side to sign with the Leafs, which was a good thing, and I'm glad they finally got it done.
Yeah, a lot of moves being done, and hopefully we'll be talking about these guys in the future, which you obviously probably will for both of them. But now let's focus and shift our focus to some big decisions that Sheldon Keefe has to make, the Leafs front office and everyone involved in these strategic strategical decisions regarding the lines. And Darius, I kind of let you take over here, but we'll start with kind of just the fact. I mean, there's a lot. We discussed some of it in our stream. There's a lot to discuss when it comes to these lines and what's going to happen going forward. We have some Leafs fans saying, I'm just going to say it, you cannot sit Nick Robertson for Ryan Reeves in the playoffs. Has Reeves played okay recently? Yes, but don't settle for okay. Goals win series, not fights. Other guys can and have shown they'll drop the gloves. And I think this is an interesting talking point because obviously Reeves was brought in to do that, be aggressive. But now you have other guys. I mean, you have Labushkin, you have Joel Edmondson, these guys who have kind of stepped up to the dish, and everyone in general has kind of stepped up to the dish regarding being physical ever since they've came in. What are your thoughts on this and some of the big decisions that, I mean, TJ Brody is another one. You see people are mad about TJ Brody, calling him, I wouldn't call him an idiot, but he said he clears the pucks into the corner instead of the zone, stands there like a pylon. The people are upset with TJ Brody. That's a big decision to make, and then you kind of have who would the least rather play, the Florida or Boston, which we'll get into in a second, but let's focus on the Nick Robertson, Ryan Reeves, and TJ Brody situation.
Yeah. Well, to start, I have to disagree with Neeler, and I've been very vocal about how much I like Nick Robertson, that I think it would be a mistake to trade him. Where he sits right now in the lineup, the dynamic, where he is in his career, I don't think it would be a good thing to have this guy in the playoffs. He makes some shocking decisions in the defensive zone and the neutral zone, which is where he's going to be playing a lot of the hockey in the playoffs. It's going to tighten up. The rink's going to seem like it got a lot smaller to him. And he's not going to get a lot of the opportunities like he got last night on a one-on-one to rip a shot. You know, his bread and butter past a goalie, right? So I have to disagree. I think Ryan Reeves being in the lineup would make a huge difference going into the playoffs. I think he has to be in the lineup for at least game one. Maybe you rejig the lineup as you go, and if you're up 3-1 or something like that, who knows how things go. We saw it last year, right? But Ryan Reeves, I think, has to absolutely start the playoffs, because what happens if a couple of guys are taken off, like Domi's taken off the ice and stuff like that, something happens to Matthews, you need to have another guy out there like that. And honestly, Reeves has been putting together pretty good shifts and scoring chances. We've talked about it at length. When he came back from that injury, he's looked really good. So I think you have to have Ryan Reeves in the lineup come playoff time, because in the areas where it matters the most in the playoffs, Robertson has not proven himself. Although I think he has great offensive upside and that he can get better in those areas, the neutral zone, defensive zone. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think Sheldon Keefe is going to put him in that situation either, because then you're kind of setting him up for failure as well. And he has moments, he has glimpses. Like, again, he scored last night. It was great. A couple games ago, every time he gets scratched, put back in the lineup, he scores. He has these moments, but consistently you got to put it together in the playoffs. So I would be shocked if he played game one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We discussed this on our stream. I think it's the Ryan Reeves time, and that's nothing against Nick Robertson. But I mean, who knows? Maybe they change it up. This could be a fluid situation. And then the TJ Brody thing. Do you think he gets in there? I know you. I've been talking to some of my friends about it. I mean, that's a very tough decision as well. Just a quick thought on that. Do you have a quick thought?
Yeah, well, I think he's going to be in the lineup for the playoffs. Whether that's, of my opinion or not, it doesn't matter. I think he's going to be there. I have to disagree with a lot of people that are dumping on him. If you watch the play last night, he's respecting the bring hits one-timer, which I think is something he has to do. And yes, the guy's not tied up in front, Larkin, and he ends up scoring. That is a tough play. I think you still have to respect Larkin's one-timer. But again, he looks lost sometimes. He does.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a problem in the playoffs. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it. But I do think he's going to at least start in the playoffs. I think that's the direction Keefe's going to go. But we'll have to see. Throughout the series, it might change.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be interesting. That's one of the big ones too. But now let's have a debate. I mean, we're probably going to agree because we discussed this in our stream as well. But Boston or Florida? And I want you, everyone watching, leave it in the comment section. Who would you rather the Toronto Maple Leafs play on April 20th, the Boston Bruins or the Florida Panthers? I think I'm of the side of I've done some thinking. I think I'd rather play Florida in general, but I could see the reason that some people would want to play Boston. Do you have an opinion on this? I just think Florida is a little less scary to me than the Boston Bruins.
My opinion of this lies on, if you want to win the Stanley Cup, you got to beat every single team that lies in your way. It doesn't matter who it is. That is my opinion. So I don't have a preferred opinion. I know that might be a boring answer, but the way I look at it too, these are two teams that you have to slay the dragon against. You've lost to both of these teams in the playoffs, right? So you have to, it doesn't matter. And right now, as it stands right now, I don't think it's going to end up this way, but they're playing the Boston Bruins. Bad history there in the playoffs. Yes. Bad history. So maybe you're looking at Florida like, all right, let's get revenge for last year kind of thing, and it might be a little bit of a less weight on their shoulders. But I don't think you can look at it and be like, yeah, I prefer one over the other. Two tough teams, and if you want to win the cup, you got to beat the best of the best.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. And yeah, the Boston just scares me, even though they're both great teams. And then obviously there's always the question of, if you'd even rather have home ice advantage against the Panthers because they're amazing on the road, but then the Leafs are also better on the road. There's a lot to discuss. We'll be definitely covering that as the playoffs approach, as now they're only 6 or so days away. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know your thoughts are on all this in the comment section below. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you tomorrow.